I'm going to do all the odd ones. You guys are going to finish the even ones for homework, classwork, however you want to do it. But I do want you guys to get into the habit, to get into the understanding of how to divide radicals and where you have a problem, right? You're not allowed to have a radical in a denominator. It's just not allowed. So when you have a problem that looks like number 1, there's a couple ways that you can look at this. Some people will immediately see that the square root of 36 is what? 6. And then what can you break 8 up into? 4 times 2, okay. Can you simplify that a little bit more? Yes. What is the square root of 4? 2. So this becomes 2 square root of 2 over 6. Now, anything on the outside that does not or isn't attached to a plus or minus sign, you can simplify. 2 goes into 2 how many times? Once. So you're left with the square root of 2. And then 2 goes into 6 how many times? 3 times. So there's your answer. Another way that you can look at these problems is, do you see at the beginning how they're both underneath a radical? Square root of 8 and square root of 36. If you guys want to, you could simplify starting here. You could say, okay, wait, they're both underneath a radical. What number goes into both 8 and 36? 4. Okay, so if I divide 8 by 4, I get the square root of 2. And if I divide 36 by 4, I get what? The square root of 9. Can you simplify that a little more? What is the square root of 9? And there's your answer. There's not just one way to go about, but do understand that when you get to this point, anything on the outside in the numerator and denominator can be simplified as long as there's no plus or minus signs. If you start here, anything that's underneath a radical, as long as there's no plus or minus sign, you can simplify there too. So let's move along then to something like number 3. All right, where is the problem? The problem is that there's a radical where? On the bottom, in the denominator. You're not allowed to have that. So the way that you get rid of that when there's just one radical, nothing else, is you're going to do what's called rationalizing. You're going to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 5, whatever the square root is on the bottom. And the reason why is you want the radical to cancel. So when you go to simplify this, there's that negative hanging out in front. But on the bottom, when you multiply the square root of 5 times the square root of 5, you get the square root of what? 25, okay. And then on the top, can you multiply something on the outside of a radical with something on the inside of the radical? No, you can't. All you can do is just stick it together. So it's 5 square root of 5. And now you see if you can cancel or simplify it all. What is the square root of 25? 5. So now can I cancel anything else? The 5 on the outside, yep. 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into 5 once. So all you have left is the radical 5. But from the beginning, guys, you cannot just cross these off. Why can't you just cross them off at the beginning? Because one's outside of a radical, one's on the inside. You can only cancel if something is exactly the same on the top and the bottom. The whole number 5 is a very different number than the square root of 5. So just pay attention to that. All right, now we get into problems that are a little more difficult. But again, where is the problem? What is the issue? The square root in the bottom. You do not have to rationalize by the whole denominator. It just has to be by the radical. There's no plus or minus signs in the denominator. We're going to get to that in a second. We're going to have to multiply the top and the bottom by the square root of 3. So when I simplify the bottom, if I multiply, I get 5 on the outside. And then the square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is the square root of what? 9, right? You guys agree? What is the square root of 9? 3. So what do I do with the 5 and the 3? I multiply them, so I'm left with just 15 on the bottom, which is what we want to happen. You want the radical to go away. So now we're going to do the exact same thing on the top, but now we have 2 terms here, so we're just going to distribute. A house times a house is just a bigger house. What is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? the square root of 9 plus, when I multiply the square root of 3 here, what does that 3 multiply with? The 3 on the outside or the 2 on the inside? The inside, right? Inside times inside, outside times outside. Excuse me. So this is 3 square root of what? What's 3 times 2? 6. And now what can we simplify? What is the square root of 9? 3. So this becomes 3 plus 3 square roots of 6. Now I'm going to talk to Mr. Saldana and Ms. Chung. If you get to this point, if you guys get to this point, that's a majority of the problem complete and correct. I don't know how much simplifying that they're going to require, so I have to talk to them. But if you notice, you can simplify this a little more. You have to separate it, though. Make this 3 over 15 plus 3 square root of 6 over 15. What goes into both 3 and 15? 3. So this becomes a 1, and this becomes a 5, right? This becomes a 1, and this becomes a 5. So you're left with 1 plus the square root of 6 over 5. If you look at the answer key, that's what the answer is. But if you get, if for today you guys can get to that point, I'd be super happy. We'll get to the simplifying part. We'll practice that a bit more. But I want you to really understand what you need to do in order to get the radical to go away. And then we'll get to the simplifying part. All right, so 7 and 9 are the difficult ones. We did a couple of these on the notes, and the video's up. You guys can rewatch it. I'm sure you maybe don't remember it as much, but that's fine. You can rewatch it. But what is the problem? What's the issue that we have here in this one? There's a radical in the denominator, right? All right, well, there's also another problem. There's a plus sign. So what that means is that 4 square root of 2 is stuck to that 2. Whenever you have a plus or minus sign, you have to remember that that is together. So we can't just multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 2 and get it to go away. You have to multiply by what is called the conjugate. All right, write that down, conjugate. Just a fancy word for opposite. So if you have 2 plus 4 square root of 2, what would the opposite of 2 plus 4 square root of 2 be? Perfect. So I'm going to say 2 minus 4 square root of 2. And what you do to the bottom, and anytime you have a fraction, you do where? To the top. So 2 minus 4 square root of 2. So now we have to FOIL. We have to multiply. So do this with me. Watch me. What's 2 times 2? 4. What is 2 times negative 4 square root of 2? Outside times outside. What do you get? Negative what? Perfect. Negative 8 square root of 2. Now I'm going to multiply right here. What's 4 square root of 2 times 2? 4 times 2 is 8. So plus 8 square root of 2. And then the last, outside times outside. What's negative 4 times 4? Negative 4 times 4, guys. 16, thank you. And then the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is the square root of 4. All right, so all we did was FOIL. First times first, then the first times outside, then inside times inside, then last times last. Now when we go to simplify, guys, the whole reason you have to multiply by the conjugate is so this happens. What happens right here with a negative 8 square root of 2 and a positive 8 square root of 2? They cancel out, which is exactly what we needed to happen. What is the square root of 4? 2. So what do I do with these two numbers right here? Multiply. So what you end up with on the bottom is 4 minus 32, which is what? What's 4 minus 32? Negative 28. So what did we want to do? We said, hey, at the beginning, there's a radical in the denominator, and I got to get rid of it. When you multiply the conjugate, and you FOIL it out, it'll always work out to where the denominator will not have a radical. They will cancel each other out. So now we go back and let's FOIL the top. This part's easy. What's 5 times 2? 10. And then what's 5 times negative 4 square root of 2? Outside times outside. What's 5 times 4? So negative 20 square root of 2. So you have 10 minus 20 square root of 2. Now again, if you get there, I'm super happy. I'm super happy. But if you look at the answer key goes one step further and separates and simplifies. So 10 divided by negative 28. And then a negative divided by negative is a positive. So 20 square root of 2 over 28. What number goes into both 10 and 28? 2. So this becomes 5 over 14. And then what goes into both 20 and 28? 4. So this becomes 5 and 7. So this answer, if it was completely simplified, would be like this. But again, if you can get here, I'm super happy. We'll work on the simplifying part. What we're really focusing on today is the conjugate. Make sure you multiply by the right thing and then simplify. So let's do 9 and then I'll let you guys work. What's wrong with 9? What's the problem with 9? There's a radical in the denominator. Is the radical all by itself? No, it's attached with a plus or a minus sign. So we've got to put our parentheses around it. And how do I get rid of it? What am I going to multiply by? The conjugate. What is the conjugate of 5 minus the square root of 5? 5 plus. Just change the sign in the middle. And what you do to the bottom, guys, you do where? To the top. Always. Every time you work with fractions, what you do to the bottom, you do to the top. Same thing with an equation. What you do to the left side, you do to the right side. So let's worry about the bottom first, because ultimately we want the denominator to not have a radical. You want the radicals to cancel. So let's FOIL. First times first. What's 5 times 5? 25. Now I have 5 times the square root of 5.
25. Oh, 5.
No, you just stick it together. 5 on the outside, square root of 5 on the inside. Now you have negative square root of 5 and 5. How do you write it? You stick it together, negative 5 square root of 5, and then you have negative square root of 5 and a positive square root of 5 is minus the square root of 25. Now before we go do anything with the top, I want to make sure that my radicals cancel. So look at the bottom here. I have a positive 5 root 5 and a negative 1. What happens? They cancel out, great. And then what is the square root of 25? 5. So what do we have on the bottom? 25 minus 5, which is? Perfect. All that work, all that multiplication, stuff like that, because we needed the radical to cancel, and it did. So now let's go on the top. We'll FOIL the top out. What is 5 times 5? 25. What is 5 times the square root of 5?
5.
Plus 5 square root of 5. Yep, stick it together. What's 4 square root of 5 times 5? Yep, 20 square root of 5. And then what's 4 radical 5 times radical 5? Yep, 4 radical 25. Good job, Shania. So now let's see what we can simplify. What is, guys, over here at the end, what is the square root of 25? 5. So what do I do with these two numbers? Multiply. So I can now add 20 and 25 and get 45. And then I look here. I have 5 square roots of 5, and then I have 20 square roots of 5. So how many total do I have? 25. Good. Square root of 5. Now, again, if you can get there, I'm super excited. But to go one step further and simplify, you split it up. So 45 over 20 plus 25 square root of 5 over 20. What number goes into both 45 and 20?
5.
Okay, so 5 goes in here 9 times, 5 goes in here 4 times. What number goes into both 25 and 20? 5. 5 goes in here 5 times. 5 goes in here 4 times. So you could leave it as 9 over 4 plus 5 squared root of 5 over 4. Or, since they have the same denominator, you could write it like that. Again, what my goal today is for you guys to get here. We can work on the simplifying a little later on, but my goal is for you to get there. All right, I'm going to post this, so it's there for you guys to look back on, to look over. I also have a video of explaining this last week when we did it. So please try to finish, if you can, try to do it now so you can ask me questions if you have any. And then we'll finish up tomorrow what we need to do before your test.